Into inside. I want to jump manje, so when it's inside, then we'll cut into inside here. That's right. Yeah. I'm going to speak to you. I'm speaking on the phone. Patch me through so I can. No, patch me through because I'm speaking to you on the phone. I need to have -1. So patch me through so I can speak to you on the mic. Get you patch me through because I'm.
Thank you very much.
Are you hearing me?
This morning we turn our attention.
Okay, it's fine. Okay. GCIS officers. GCIS, like SABC, Hatfield. GCIS. Yeah, Hatfield, opposite the SABC. Okay. Hey, Thomas, just be aware that you are cutting when it's OETDH, Lapo Thomas, ne? Yeah, but okay, but I'm outside, he's in the van, I'm sure you can hear me. Thomas, Studio 9, if you just cut in and out. Yeah. What do you want? Just to cut in and out for us. Okay, Thomas, I hope you can hear me, but if you can cut in and out for us via Lukuza. Okay, sure.
For the proceedings of this morning.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. Are you speaking to him via cams? Because
Program Director, Honorable Minister.
3 minutes, okay?
National Assembly, leaders and of sport federations and the sport movement in general. Allow me to welcome you to the third annual session of the release by the Minister of the report of the Transformation Commission, which we have aptly entitled the Eminent Persons Group on Transformation in Sport, or shortened for EPG. This work, as you may recall, is
2 minutes to me, thank you.
Provincial government.
Yep, I'm standing by. Okay. Who's speaking to me? Who is speaking to me? Who will be speaking to me? Color. Yeah, I thought the slide was this. Thank you much indeed there, Kendall, where we come to you live from the offices of the GCIS in Pretoria. Rightfully, as you said, we talk about all things transformation sport. Now remember, this is something that the Minister launched in 2004, where he set up a commission, if I can put it that way, for lack of a better word, the Eminent Persons Group. Their job basically is to look at how do we transform sport. What can we do instead of screaming at the top of our lungs saying, oh, we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players, we want this, we want that. But how is it practically? Is it doable? Initially, first, the big five were chosen: athletics, netball, cricket, soccer, as well as rugby. Those are the pilot projects, so to speak, on that. There have been reports that have been given back to the minister. Today, basically, is a combination of that. A third report will be handed in, as you can see, the minister there, as well as the deputy minister listening in as the proceedings begin. And I must say, Kendall, all these sporting federations are currently here in Pretoria, where they're going to listen on the minister. And something that is very important here is that the minister will set up punitive measures for all those sporting codes that he feels that maybe are not pulling their weight in as far as what he's asked for as transformation is concerned. So a lot expected from this gathering, Kendall. We'll be hearing from them. I saw the SASCOC president, Mr. Gideon Sam. We also saw the South African Rugby Union as well, Mr. Yuri Roo, the CEO, is currently as well. Remember that just last week, there were calls again coming in from Parliament saying, why is it that Springbok Rugby still uses Springbok instead of the Protea like every other national team? So will these things be brought up here? We're yet to see, Kendall, but you're going to be here for the whole day, so hopefully we'll get some sort of semblance on what's going on, the way forward as far as transformation sports concerned. It is a sticky subject. You can never get into sport and not talk about it. So these are all things that we expected to hear. Sports Minister will be, as you said, rightfully said, addressing the media, but most importantly, addressing the federations that are here, wanting to see what the minister's got to say. Most importantly, what the scorecard is, because that Eminent Persons Group, there was a range of people taken from across the board in South Africa is concerned. Educators, some of them, I think Mr. Somato Fikile is one of the chair. I think he's the chair of the Eminent Persons Group. So high-profile people who are there looking into transformation in sports. So we'll be hearing from that, from this press conference and from the minister himself, what exactly is going to happen, if anything at all, to sports federations who don't want to transform, and what happens to those who do transform? Are they happy? We'll hear from them. Back to you guys in the studio. You'll catch up with us again a bit later.
Tabitha Zitola right there giving us the lowdown on what's happening with the Eminent Persons Group, meeting with the Minister of Sports, Fikile Mbalula, and they report back. We'll definitely be waiting for all of that with bated breath. Now, moving on to other space.
Let's go take inside
principles and the core values of the process we seek to see in our federations came about. Despite the setback of the fact that the Indaba had rejected the ministry's proposal of doing away with the quota system, as there was a genuine feeling that the reason why the quota system was introduced in the first place was not as yet, and the circumstances were not yet addressed. We then incorporated the quotas as just one of the sub-dimensions of the 7-dimension charter and multi-scorecard. We then introduced under the demographic dimension the quotas as just one measure. So we are now measuring the totality of everything, with access being the paramount theme for us. Access is key, because often than not, if we measure ourselves that what we are investing as a country, both civil society, both private sector as well as government spending, we are by far investing a lot of money and our outcomes are quite poor. And we believe that with the type of resources which are at our disposal, if they were being employed quite wisely, we would be outperforming and doing well. Therefore, the biggest barrier we see is not necessarily financial resources, although they are a key factor, but the biggest barrier is access. We have to shatter the glass ceiling, and this system, for the first time, offers us a wall-to-wall review and a sneak preview of the state of health of this. Importantly, as you know, we started with a pilot system where we targeted the big five, rugby, cricket, netball, athletics, as well as football. And with that, we were able to do a bit of a dipstick and check how far the oil in this car is, and we were able to attest to the reality of what we were faced with. We then, on a voluntary basis, negotiated with the 5 big federations and came to an agreement, and commitments were made by the leadership of the sporting federations as to what would be achieved. We then signed 5-year agreements with these organizations, and we agreed that with the big 5, that we would measure them annually towards them achieving the 5-year target. You would also recall that there was a debate of whether it was time to move the target from the 50% to a 60% target. We nevertheless allowed for the 5 federations to come forward and say, this is what, within our resources, within our means, can be achieved within a 5-year period. So we as government cannot stand on the highest pedestals and shut down on the sporting bodies, and particularly national teams that are supposed to leave our shores representing the country in international competition. When we have a 5-year agreement with the federations, we have to subject them not via emotions, but through a scientific scorecard, and to look at the totality of the transformation picture in this organization and to come to a much more thorough position on which we can engage. If penalties have to be imposed, that's the prerogative of the minister. We had long realized that we have within our power and within the existing laws, we do not need to introduce any new law to be able to address this matter. We need the necessary political will and the commitment of all in the sporting sector to achieve this. So, ladies and gentlemen, as the APG hands over its report to the minister this year, please let's keep this background and the centrality of SASCOC as both an Olympic body and also a sports confederation responsible for ensuring that it is an additional arm and an agent of government to strengthen within the sporting sector and the sports movement in general what needs and what are the key imperatives of government and society. And within that, I wish to welcome you, and let's have fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG. The Memorandum of Agreement is a tripartite Memorandum of Agreement that has the following partners: it's Sport and Recreation, the specific federation, and SASCOC. I now invite the President of SASCOC, Mr. Gideon Sen, to make an intervention.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Umphathiswa wezemidlalo nesekela lakho. MEC waseMpuma Koloni. Nawe Mama Dlulane we Portfolio Committee. All our invited guests here and friends of the media, ladies and gentlemen. We are here as the sports movement, SASCOC, understanding the context of this meeting today and the report that will be given here. We know it is against the backdrop of quite a number of challenges for us in the sports movement. And it is therefore very clear to us that we have to interrogate what will be presented to us here today as a partner in this whole transformation process. We will also understand the broader move within our country to ensure that what existed many years ago must be corrected now. Those of you who listened last night to the debate on the whole issue of the Constitution, what areas of the Constitution we need to review, will attest to the fact that there's still a long way to go. And we in the sports movement are aware of the fact that there is a long way for us to move. But we are not going to shirk our responsibility and point fingers at what and this and that. We are in it, all of us, to make sure that these things happen. We are secondly aware of what is guiding us. When we met in 2011 to sit down and think about what it is that we need to do as a country under the leadership of Umphathiswa Mbalula. We knew exactly that we're now embarking on a very, very long road. And it's not going to be easy because people have been used to certain ways of doing things for more than decades, 50 years and more, 300 years, and now you're asking them within a period of 20, 25 years to change that. It was not going to be easy to wait for them to be willing to do some of those things, and hence what we have here today, this EPG process. And so we arrive here as a sports movement to listen to the veracity of the data that is going to be presented here. Precisely because we had agreed with the minister that we as SASCOC will guide our federations to ensure that they do the right thing. I must confess at this point, Mr. Minister, that it's not easy to get our federations to move in the direction that we want them to move in. And so when we sit down and we look at the data, we wonder how they get the data to the EPG. Because in most of the cases, in as much as we have put at their disposal people who can help them to develop their databases, some of them are still resisting and saying that we've got our own, and when you say show it, they can't show it to you. So we would love to see what the data is going to say, and we would, with you, agree that now is the time that these punitive measures must be put in place. We're also here to listen as to what is happening on the front with school sport, because we do realize that for transformation to really, really take place, and for all of us to be happy with that process, we need to understand what is being said. And reading the report, Dr. Basson, I can see that we are still having some challenges on that front. And we have to address those. We can't come to these gatherings and not address those issues. So I'm happy to hear when the DG says that maybe it is now time to begin to have a closer look at some of these punitive measures. But as a sports movement, SASCOC, Mr. Minister, we remain committed to this entire process because we, as a sports movement with our federations, we are going to make this happen. Because if it doesn't happen, we are going to fall foul to the portfolio committee and to your own department. So we continue to work side by side with our members to ensure that these issues are addressed and are addressed in a real way. And so, as the leader of the organization, yes, there may be punitive measures, but I will also plead on behalf of my members that you be not too tough on them. We are trying. We are trying to get to where we need to get to. So, to avoid the tag that we are not really in line with what we should be doing, I do appeal to all the presidents who are here, deputy presidents and CEOs of organizations. This is a serious task. And we need to make sure that we do not shirk our responsibilities. When information is being asked, I am a little bit perturbed, Dr. Basson. There are areas there where you say, no information from the Federation. That can't be right. Surely that cannot be right. So we have to deal with these federations. Yes, you will plead poverty, but the Lotto is giving you money to run your administration. The department is giving you money to run your administration. So when information is being asked and for you to submit and you do not submit, we cannot speak on your behalf. You just have to take the cane. It may not be nice, but I'm sure next time you'll be ready. So I stand here, Mr. Mbalula, our minister, to say to you that we are committed to this entire process and we will see it through together with the minister. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kasela. For a moment, you sounded like you can read the minister's mind. by asking him to be soft as though there's something you know. If you could let us with a secret, we'll appreciate that, Mr. President. Thank you very much, Kasela. Ladies and gentlemen, as I indicated in the beginning, that the Eminent Persons Group on Sports Transformation is represented by Mr. Max Moss, Dr. Basson, Mr. Louis von Zeyner, and Mr. Kondisa Ngwenya. We have now come to that item of the program when we'll invite Mr. von Zeyner together with Mr. Max Moss to actually hand over the EPG report to the Minister of Sport. Mr. von Zeyner.
Thank you, Program Director. Minister, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for us to be here today. Minister, when you appointed the EPG, enhancing what was then the Transformation Committee, you said, and I quote, "Change in the sector is our collective responsibility. Transformation in sport and recreation is an imperative, and we will not compromise on its implementation," unquote. Many at the time thought that this was just another committee, and besides being rather skeptical of your call, Minister, they gave the EPG little chance to succeed. One is, however, humbled today to be here, but indeed we are grateful that we are proving our skeptics wrong, and grateful that we can submit this report of progress today. It is appropriate, ladies and gentlemen, at this time to again just remind us all here today of the goal of the EPG. Our goal and mandate is to establish a management system to monitor, and then with that to evaluate, to advise and to report on the transformation status of sport in the country, as well as the effectiveness of implementing the Sport Transformation Charter and Scorecard. The purpose, Minister, of the EPG, as you mandated, is to ensure that the Sport Ministry has adequate information and insight to assess the transformation status of sport and is in a position to formulate interventions which can include punitive measures that will improve the rate and effectiveness of transformation at all levels and in all areas of South African sport. This is indeed a mammoth task. However, one is grateful for the progress made over the last few years in this regard, and we are indeed proud to table the third report today. The report today covers 19 codes, which is a significant improvement from our initial pilot report that only at that stage covered 5 codes. Transformation in all sectors of society is a national imperative. The focus remains on transformation programs that effectively and genuinely address the legacy of the past and bring us closer to the realization of our collective vision of a non-racial, united and just society. The role of sport in uniting diverse, previously divided communities and the society as large has been demonstrated on numerous occasions in our 22 years of democracy. Minister, we do take to heart your call to all sports authorities at all levels and in all structures to expedite the process. Just as we need to up our game to create more of those uniting moments that I've just referred to, we also accept and agree that the processes and progress to change the face of sport are still too slow. One need to admit that some of the slow progress was, amongst other things, because of the largely one-dimensional, top-down, oversimplistic and quick-fix intervention process focused on only changing the collective, generic black demographic profiles of representative teams. The rate of black African representation has fallen behind the rate of generic black representation improvement in all areas. Furthermore, Minister, we acknowledge that other dimensions of transformation need more attention, and Dr. Basson will shortly elaborate on that. The report today tabled again highlights the challenges, as Mr. Sam has said, facing school sport. The foundation of any sport system is school sport. The need for improving the coordination and alignment of all role players involved is again pointed out as a major issue to be addressed to get us to success. This is without doubt South African sport's Achilles heel. We are indeed encouraged by the agreement reached between the Department of Basic Education and the Department of Sport and Recreation to address some of these challenges. However, the management and the implementation of this agreement must be an urgent priority for the year. The report again also highlights that changing the demographic profile of sport is essential for the sustainability of our sporting system. It was therefore important for us to look at specific time-based targets and to address that. The implementation of the sport barometer was a major achievement, and we particularly thank the 5 sporting codes that again assisted us in this regard. With more codes getting onto the barometer this year, the data that we will have available and the forecasting of performance will go a long way to assist us to become more proactive in our approach. As this report clearly highlights, Minister, and in the words of the Chairman of the EPG, who unfortunately cannot be here today, there's still a long walk and many rivers to cross to realize truly transformed sport in South Africa. It will need the courage, spirit, and resilience that are often found in winning teams and great athletes. In conclusion, Program Director, the EPG would like to thank the 19 sport codes that worked with us to finalize the report. We want to thank the DG for guidance, as well as his leadership and support. Max, to you and the office for vital support. Thanks to the Deputy Minister and Minister specifically to you for the confidence in the EPG in giving us the opportunity to make a contribution. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to highlight specifically Dr. Basson for doing the lion's share of analyzing and packaging a wealth of information. I would now like to call on Maxwell Moss to hand the report to the Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. von Zuyner and Mr. Max Moss, Minister DM and the DG. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to invite the Minister of Sport and Recreation, Mr. Fikile Mbalula, to deliver the acceptance speech.
Deputy Minister of Sports and Recreation, Mr. Gert Westhuizen, MEC Phemima Jodina, Director General, Mr. Alec Muyemi, President of SASCOC, Mr. Gideon Sam, and CEO, Mr. Tabi Reddy, Chair of the Portfolio Committee, Ms. Beauty Dlulani, representatives of federations and sport bodies, members of Eminent Persons Group on Sports Transformation, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Today, I'm pleased and delighted to receive the results of the 3rd Eminent Persons Group on Transformation in Sports report for 2014-2015. This occasion also presents me with the opportunity to pronounce on the Transformation Barometer as submitted to me by EPG in its dual capacity as an advisory committee and Transformation Commission. The findings and outcomes of the report are presented to the 19 federations and the South African citizenry for public scrutiny. Critical reflections and flawless execution by our federations and sport bodies. It is my intention to afford an opportunity to all the 19 sporting codes mentioned above to consider the findings and recommendations with a view
That's the African anthem. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, things of GCIS. we are used to of SASCOC. I've written to the 14 additional federations, inviting them to present to me their barometer and prepare themselves for signing memorandum of agreements with the Department of Sports and Recreation South Africa as a matter of agency. These federations and sports bodies are basketball, chess, table tennis, softball, volleyball, boxing, hockey, gymnastics, swimming, baseball, rowing, bowls, jackskey, and tennis. You will recall, ladies and gentlemen, that the Transformation Status Report referred to above covered Athletics South Africa, Cricket South Africa, South African Football Association, Netball South Africa, and the South African Rugby Union. These big five federations provided the EPG Secretariat with information and data that was analyzed and thus enabling the EPG to interpret the data in line with our multi-dimensional scorecard embedded in our transformation charter. It is on this basis that the EPG made its findings and recommendations to the Minister of Sport and Recreation, South Africa. The findings and recommendations were announced at a public event in May 2015. Thereafter, the five federations had, out of their own volition, signed a memorandum of agreement with the Department of Sports and Recreation, South Africa in 2015. The Memorandum of Understanding is premised on the transformation barometer with clear and concrete transformation targets and goals over the next 5 years. The Memorandum of Understanding further delineates roles and responsibilities of each party to the agreement and stipulates punitive measures to be taken in the event of non-compliance. I take this opportunity to remind you what these punitive measures entail in the event of federation failing to meet its own set transformation targets. It is within my right and prerogative to consider applying any of the following penalties. 1, I may suspend or withdraw government funding to the said federation due to non-compliance. I may withdraw government recognition of the particular federation as a national federation, whereafter I will publish such a decision in the Government Gazette. Thirdly, in essence, I may revoke the privilege of a federation to host and bid for major and mega events, international tournaments in the Republic, and withdraw recognition of the said federation. I may withdraw the federation's opportunity to be awarded national Kailas via SASCOC to players who participate under the auspices of the particular federation in order to represent the Republic internationally and nationally. I may terminate the relationship and any cooperation between SRSA and the said federation due to non-compliance. Finally, I may withdraw political support and endorsements for sponsorships. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm applying these measures informed by the urgent task for the sports sector to reconstruct the fragmented and deeply discriminatory sport and recreation landscape by establishing a unified sports system that is underpinned by the principles of democracy, equity, transparency, demographic representation, access, and increased participation. The third EPG report reminds us and confirms that social reconstruction of our sport and recreation system has linkages to economic development in the context of global economies and competitiveness. This report offers respite from the suffocating prism through which we as South Africans view our past and present. At this hour of destiny, South Africa needs more than ever before sport for development and peace. This report is about the future of South African sport, provisioning and quality of opportunities to all sport-loving people of our beloved country. The Transformation Charter is the lodestar of the sport movement that draws our attention to the immediate and inevitable necessity for the sports system to transform both moral and strategic imperatives. Morally, because it is the right thing to do considering the grave injustices of the past, and strategically because of the reality that 84% of the country's under 18 old population grouping is black, African, and only 16% is white, colored, and Indian. To ignore this strategic reality from sustainability perspective alone will be suicidal. Thus, the reasons for sport organization to transform rapidly have not only become compelling, it had become fundamental. I have applied my mind to the aforementioned reality and have taken into account the strides made by men and women within the sports movement to achieve transformation goals. I recognize and acknowledge the political will and tremendous efforts made by federations and sport bodies in the implementation of National Sport and Recreation Plan and its attendant Transformation Charter. It is not my intention to disrupt the momentum gained from the implementation of the Transformation Barometer and the global competitive edge of some federations and sports bodies. However, I'm mindful of the urgent task for federations to move with speed in the direction of providing quality of opportunities and access to the youth of our country. On the basis of the aforementioned reasons, I've therefore resolved not to revoke punitive measures that may either paralyze our federations financially or deny opportunities to our athletes to compete continentally and globally. President Gideon Sam. I've therefore resolved to revoke the privilege of Athletics South Africa, Cricket South Africa, Netball South Africa, and South African Rugby Union to host and bid for any major and mega international tournaments in the Republic of South Africa as a consequence of the aforementioned federation not meeting their own set transformation targets with immediate effect. I will review this decision when considering the results of the 2016-2017 Transformation Barometer. In respect of the South African Football Association, I'm delighted that SAFA has met its transformation targets. I will, however, issue a ministerial directive to SAFA as a consequence of their poor drive to penetrate and roll out football in former Model C schools and private schools. I'm directing all federations and sport bodies to establish transformation committees and appoint transformation officers, as cricket and rugby has done. These structures must be mainstreamed and be integrated in all business units of the federations and sport bodies. I've issued the Director General to convene a special heads of departments meeting, HEADCOM, to consider the EPG report implications on the recommendations pertaining to government. This include but not limited to school sport, club development, funding for sport and facilities. Ladies and gentlemen, the transformation project must succeed as our government directed the sports sector to, among others, promote social cohesion and nation building across society through increased interaction across race and class through sport, advocate for transformation in sport and recreation, develop talented athletes by providing them with opportunities to excel, support high-performance athletes to achieve success in international sport competition, increase by 10% annually the number of citizens accessing sport and recreation activities. I end by expressing my gratitude and word of appreciation to members of the Eminent Persons Group on Transformation in Sport. Their invaluable contribution to the sport and recreation community. Their steady hand and unremitting endeavors places the sport movement on a progressive growth and development trajectory. The production of the third EPG Transformation Status report will not be possible had it not been for the diligent behind-the-scene work driven by Dr. Passon and his team. The Director General of Sport and Recreation South Africa has been a pillar of strength and support to the EPG in the last 3 years. I'm looking forward to the successful implementation of the EPG on sport transformation findings and recommendations. I believe that given the political will and support from government and all spheres and the South African Sports Confederation and Olympic Committee, SASCOC, we will achieve an accessible, adequately funded, demographically representative and equitable, democratic and non-racial sporting landscape. When I conclude, I would like to thank the outgoing chairperson of the EPG, Dr. Somadoda Fikile, and I wish him well, and at the same time thank him for availing his services to serve our country and in particular the sporting movement. We will appoint and beef up the EPG and the new chairperson in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think the President of SASCOC managed to appeal successfully to the Minister in the application of the penalties. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one more. Before that, there are two opportunities for federations. First, there will be a presentation made by Dr. Passon that will give a thorough exposition of how the federations fared in their barometers. And then after lunch, there'll also be an opportunity for a meeting with the Minister to interact with the 19 federations. That will be after lunchtime. Ladies and gentlemen, I will now ask the Director General to preside over an item of which involves the announcement of and unveiling of the EPG logo. As you know, the EPG is an independent body that provides the Minister with advice on sport matters, and it's also a transformation commission that monitors progress or lack of it in sport. DG, I'm now handing over to you.
Thank you, Program Director. May I please invite the Minister of Sport, the Deputy Minister of Sport, the President of SASCOC, as well as Mr. von Zeyner to approach the plug where the logo is. Just before the Minister unveils the logo of the EPG has been designed taking into cognizance the fact that we come from the divergent past. We have chosen carefully a totem for its representation, noting the splendor with which this comes about and the metamorphosis of the process of bringing this totem into being and its life. And short as it is, it signifies the importance of undergoing a tremendous process, but also that transformation as a whole is a short-lived process. It has to happen quite rapidly and very fast. But importantly is that what this displays during its short lifetime is wonder and splendor of different colors and a best of nature and full of life. And it soars up in the skies and it shows its beauty of what can be achieved once one has gone through a rigorous process. And it aptly captures the need for this transformation commission named the EPG. Minister, may I please invite you to unveil the logo.
Thank you very much, Minister, Deputy Minister, Mr. Sam, and Mr. Von Zeiner and DG. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now receive the technical report from Dr. Basson. It's a bit longish. It will take less than an hour. Thereafter, we'll afford an opportunity to the ladies and gentlemen of the media to ask questions. I now invite Dr. Basson to drill to the detail of the report that was presented to the Minister.
Honourable Minister Mbalula, Deputy Minister Mr. Gert Oosthuizen, Director General Mr. Alec Mohemi, MEC Pammy Majudeen, Chairperson of the Sports Portfolio Committee, President of SASCOC Mr. Gideon Sam, and the CEO of SASCOC Mr. Tabi Reddy, EPG Advisory Group members, Federation Presidents and representatives. It's my pleasure to present to you the annual report of the EPG covering the period of that under review. I am going to try and deal with the report under those headings. Some introductory comments that may be repetitive in terms of certain things that have been mentioned already. Then I'll give some extract from the audit report, observations and some insights gained. And then a brief overview of the recently introduced barometer system and the basis maybe for the Minister's decision. If there's time, I'll highlight the major issues. And then, regretfully, I don't think I'm going to have time to deal with the school sport realities, which is an important one, but we'll see how far we go. Now, up until now, the Federation's understanding of the audit process after 3 reports have deepened, and the data and quality and reliability has been improving consistently. EPG audited result databases are evolving, albeit slowly, as part of business intelligence systems in more and more codes. Forerunners in this regard is undoubtedly rugby and cricket. Those transformation data systems is contributing to the business intelligence systems in those codes. Quality of larger federation data submissions, as I said, notably cricket and rugby, are increasing reliable. They have assigned dedicated resources to manage transformation data and collection processes. That is the difference between rugby and cricket and all the other federations. Dedicated people are addressing themselves to the data collection processes and putting it together. Many other codes are doing it on a part-time basis, and it's simply not working as well as it could. Resources constraints are obviously preventing smaller federations from establishing matching processes to those of the 2 major codes. Sport and recreation grant frameworks may have to be adjusted to support and improve specifically transformation and data collection processes to enable full-time people to do this all-important job within each one of the federations. The codes that were included in this audit cycle have been mentioned: amateur boxing, athletics, basketball, baseball, chess, cricket, football, gymnastics, hockey, yikskei, netball, rugby, softball, swimming, table tennis, and volleyball. The underlying codes were the original 5 pilot codes. Detailed code-specific outcomes in each charter dimension is dealt with in the report in considerable detail as handed out this morning. I'm going to try and pick up on a few of those out of the report. Now, to date, 3 transformation audit reports have been published. One involving the 5 pilot codes already mentioned, and then 2 more involving 14 additional codes. Data from a 4th audit have been submitted on the 30th of March of this year, and a report covering the 2015 calendar year will be published in October, November, for which the cycle has been shortened. You can see already we're running into the following year of these audits. This year we intend to deliver the report during the year that the data has been received. The 4th audit submitted on the 30th of March have also been used to determine the outcome of the forecasted barometer system from the 5 pilot codes. So barometer related to last year's 2015's results, outcomes. Audits thus far have highlighted that the rate at which chartered targets are achieved are slow. In actual fact, it is too slow. Now that we've got some data, we can start making projections in terms of when certain demographic targets will be reached. And it's not acceptable. It stretches here into 2030 and 2040. So the barometer system, if successfully implemented, will impact the rate at which those targets will be reached. But it still remains too slow. The need for code-specific, time-based targets and forecasts have thus become important. Up until now, for the previous 20 years, we shot in the dark. Last 3 years, we tightened up a bit in terms of the transformation audits, but it's not time-based. Nobody is required to say, I'm going to achieve this in the next year or the next 10 years or whatever the case may be. So transformation effectively, therefore, remains open-ended. With the advent of the barometer and with federations now giving forecasts in key transformation charter dimensions, it is possible to make projections for the next 5 years and to act accordingly. So the barometer is the first forward-looking mechanism with respect to transformation. There's a growing consensus, and that has been mentioned, that a focus on black, as in African, coloured and Indian, demographic representation over the last 20 plus years may have been flawed and not without any consequences. The consequences of the historic top-down black, that is African plus coloured plus Indian transformation demographic target, were the following. Slow change over the past 20 plus years. Coloured and Indian representation improving at the expense of black African representation in some codes. Now one can see why that's a reason for slow transformation. Because as it mentioned, under 18-year-olds, 84% are black African. Only 16% are coloured, Indian and white. So the slow rate of transformation is a direct consequence of the exclusion of black Africans out of the sport system at the expense of those through population groupings. If we cannot mobilize the black Africanization of our sport, we will pay the price in the not too distant future. The other consequence was that definition of black, not altogether, black players taken up in representative teams became stigmatized and labeled as quotas, resulting in considerable emotional trauma in some instances for some instances of those for those players. So the wrong focus and the wrong approach in the previous 20 years have had negative consequences. It has also taken us 20 years for the moral or altruistic driver that is correcting the wrongs of the past of transformation to become less contentious. I can remember 15, 20 years ago where that was huge debate when you spoke transformation and based it on changing the demographic profiles the way we did. Today, that is less contentious and generally more acceptable. EPG audit reports have shown that both strategic and moral drivers for transformation have to be pursued. For transformation processes to be optimal, we can't forget the wrongs of the past, otherwise we will never get where we want to be. In the same instance, we cannot ignore the strategic reasons for transforming. We've got to do both in parallel with each other. Demographic population changes inevitably have a strategic impact and affect, very importantly, the sustainability of sporting codes. No longer change because you've got to change. If you don't change, any sporting code, some of them more than others, that are not going to change are going to have serious sustainability problems in the not too distant future. What are these strategic factors? The one has been mentioned. We've got the big population, 54 million people, 80% Black African, 9% coloured, 9% white approximately, and 2% Indian. And don't forget that that is the long-term transformation objective of our structures in our country. That is the long-term objective. We are working towards this by setting a target, first of all, of 50% 20 years ago. Now we're sitting at 60 years. In another couple of years, we'll take that up to 65 or 70. But the ultimate objective is that the country's demographic profile needs to be represented. Overall, the white population grouping is demonstrating a negative growth rate of minus 0.3% per annum. It's the only population group with a negative growth rate. This has led to the mortality rate within the white population exceeding the white birth rate yesterday in 2011. So as we stand here today, more whites are dying than what they are born. 84% furthermore of the country, we've mentioned that statistic already, is Black African, 16% either white, coloured or Indian. This is a new one. Since 1990, the 0 to 24-year-old age group, surely the prime focus area from a sporting perspective, Black Africans in that age group have increased by 11%. The whites in the same age group have decreased by 15%. Now, what a big rocket scientist must you be to weigh up the impact of those two pieces of statistics in your transformation. The overall impact of the foregoing over the next 15 years for this 0 to 24-year-old group will be, there are now five under 24-year-old whites as we stand here today. 14 years from now, there's only one. So any code that is going to rely on its historical, those codes that do rely on the historical white human capital resource basis are going to have sustainability factors. In the medium to long term, the traditional human resource capital base of many South African codes are diminishing, and it's a strategic reality. Codes with predominantly white demographic profiles will increasingly face sustainability challenges with inevitable consequences, as I've already said. The demographic profiles of particularly senior male representative teams of codes, their coaches and referees, presidents and boards and CEOs, tells us a very interesting story, which I'm going to share with you in the next few slides. That slide is the demographic profiles of the male representative teams. Read for netball reads females, because the females compete in the same sector as the males. But that is the composition of those codes that we have audited with respect to coloured Indian, white, black African and generic black composition. 6 codes: basketball, volleyball, table tennis, football, boxing and gymnastics have beaten or exceeded the generic black target of 60%. By the same token, basketball and football, boxing and gymnastics have also exceeded the black African transformation targets. So from a demographic transformation perspective, those 6 codes are in reasonably good shape from a demographic perspective. However, if you look at athletics, chess, cricket, rugby, netball, rowing, hockey, swimming, baseball, right down to the bottom, predominantly white, ranging from 50% white to 100% white. Now, against the statistics that I've mentioned to you, that 0 to 24-year-old group in particular, the longer we build our castles based on a white demographic profile, the more sustainability challenges will be faced. And you can see the ones that are that in that category that are particularly challenged. If I can just... You can see from the bottom here, Yikskei, bowls, baseball, swimming, hockey, rowing, netball, rugby to a lesser extent, and cricket to 45. So all of those codes in that ranking order has got to act accordingly to be able to not leave a negative legacy to those leadership people that are going to follow them. White dominance in a sporting code is not a thing to perpetuate into the future. You can also see that football demographic profile, 21% coloured Indian, 9% white, although and remember, to get to a 9% demographic profile for white in the Bafana team, you only need 1 white player. Black African 70%, and the total for generic black is 91. So you can see by just looking at that piece of statistic, you can see that white's okay, but there's no Indian component part because it's loaded by the coloured component part. Coloured's 21%, they should be at 9%, more or less 9 or 8. So double the contingency. So football's challenge is not black African or generic black. They are already complying with the ultimate objective, which is our national demographic profile. A little bit of fine-tuning and a few things elsewhere will bring them there. Now, if we start looking against that background, and I hope that I've made my point on that, the national administration demographic profiles of the federations also show some very interesting factors. This is the demographic profiles of code presidents. You can see only netball, rowing, bowls, netball is 100% black African. Forget that one there. But rowing, bowls, Yikskei and volleyball are the ones that have got white presidents. All the other ones on top, from basketball running down to swimming, have all got generic black or black African presidents. So transformation at an ultimate leadership level has been very successful. Now, I know there are opponents to that statistics because some people say, no, but these guys are tokens or they're being used and all of those things. The fact of the matter is, it's democratic processes that catapults those people into those leadership positions. So presidents have transformed. CEOs, less transformed. And I think it was the DG that mentioned it. Presidents gets appointed by the membership. CEOs gets appointed by the boards. And you can see the impact of that. So the only transformed CEO-related organizations are basketball, boxing, chess, cricket, football, hockey, swimming, and table tennis, with all the others having CEOs that is not in that category. If we look at board structures, you can see that again, for basketball, football, boxing, cricket, and so on, the boards are meeting up with the transformation targets. So you can pick out of the study, and it's well reported on in the report, you can pick out those boards or those sports federations that is well positioned for the future, because culture and values are dominated from where you come from. It is impacting change. The big problem lies lower down. Each and every federation, I can show you, in their audit reports every year, they all cry about their provincial structures. Provincial structures seems to be unresponsive to this major task that we are tackling. As a result of the changes in leadership within the national federations, we are moving forward. But at the provincial level, it's not happening. Very few federations get cooperation from the provincial federations in terms of collecting data, major problem, and also to implement meaningful transformation initiatives or interventions to assist the changes that are required at the national level. You cannot transform at the suitable rate nationally, your national representative teams, unless the support is there from a provincial level. Provincial level interacts with schools. Schools, we are largely untransformed. If we have time, we'll talk a little bit more in specific. So the base for transformation is not in a good shape. Nationally, leadership, demographically fine. Thinking is right, they try. I can tell you that those that I interface with at the national level, they all try their damnedest to be able to move forward. Let's look quickly at the other important one, which is the coaching profile of these different federations. And you can see again, the same codes keep on coming up. 100% the generic black composition of those first 6, 7, 8 codes again is far in excess of 60%. The minute we drop down to the next level, you can see there we start from the bottom. 3%, 24, 23. Now, there are arguments that the demographic profile of a coach is not important. I can tell you scientifically it is. That's been proven scientifically. Culture and values plays a very important role. A white coach is not necessarily as effective as a black coach involved with a potential top-class performer. So you can see where is our administrative structures, as reported by federations, is in good shape, can be improved in certain areas. On the coaching side, there are problems waiting for us. Look at the number of coaches. Rugby has reported nearly 16,000 coaches, followed by football with 8,000 coaches. Cricket with 4,000 coaches. And then you see there are 500s and 200s and 70 odd for hockey. So the data, and it's discussed in the report, can immediately show you where are the problem areas lying. Netball has also got a good complement of 1,500, but it's on the low side considering the number of players that netball has to cater for. It is the second largest sporting code in the country in terms of participating numbers of netball players and also of schools. So a fundamental structural problem is emerging out of the out of the data. If we go to the referees and the umpires, same pattern. Same codes, more or less, achieved. The referees and umpires fall in the category. The ones that fall below, again, yak skate tennis upward from top, right up to the top. So, administratively, transformation in motion. When it comes to key component parts, and there are others mentioned in the report, in key component parts, we're not there yet. Where is the problem? Doesn't lie at national level. These people, coaches and referees, just like players, must come from the provincial structures. If the provincial structures are not functioning and not addressing the right issues under the guidance of the national body, transformation will remain slow. The nature of the game comes out if you look at the number of referees. Bowls, it's got a massive number of umpires. That's the nature of the game. Football has got the next highest, followed by swimming with the next highest, and then by rugby, and cricket just below them. So when you start, and that's why the database thing is so important. A code that does not have a very good database, number of players, number of schools, composition of underage teams, composition of provincial teams, cannot plan for the need with respect to those support structures, number of coaches, numbers of referees, because that's also full in the scientific literature, the number of coaches that you need per player, the number of referees that you need per games to have played. So that database information to do strategic planning with respect to shaping the complete transformation profile of your organization is important. This is a last quick slide. This is the transformation slide, which we measure governance with respect to the number of times, for those of you that's involved, the strategic plan has been reviewed a number of times in the last 5 years. Transformation strategy has been revised. Number of times transformation status has been monitored. So those things, governance issues related to your future planning thing, plus the number of times of unqualified financial reports are important. Best scoring federation there is swimming with a 91% figure, followed by rugby with 67, followed by netball with 64, followed by tennis by 62, and followed by cricket by 59. The bulk, if you look there at the bottom end of the things, has got serious planning, governance-related issues. That is the hub in terms of how you and your organization plan the way you address the thing. Okay, those are a few highlights out of the audit report. Just to sensitize you to the rest. Those of you that have studied the previous year, go into that in depth. It'll help you a lot. Let's look at the barometer initiative. Just to highlight that, the Minister has pronounced on it, so let's just give a bit of background to that. The 5 codes signed Memorandum of Agreements in May 2015. Now remember, your organization didn't stop functioning before you signed this Memorandum of Agreement. You functioned since January. All of the transformation data said you project for how you are going to perform in 2015. We put it into your Memorandum of Agreement, and that is what you commit yourself to achieve during that year. If there were any problems with that targets that you have set for yourself in May 4, 2015, you should have spoken about it before the time. The purpose was to provide forecast transformation performance target in selected charter dimensions, right up until 2018. First, as I said, forward-looking, how is cricket going to look? How is rugby going to look 5 years from now? Is there progress? Is there not progress? Which will enable the Minister to then pronounce on a lack of progress or good progress over a period of time. He's taken a first step towards that thing in the light of the results that we've accumulated for this year. Then, on the basis of that, you go then back and formulate and present action plans to deal with the findings and the recommendations of the annual EPG report. Remember, your actual transformation data results comes out of the EPG report. There are recommendations at the back of the report that's been in place for some time now. I think there's about 30 or so. If you implement or take note of that recommendations, and make transformation an integral part of your boardroom meetings, it's not just another add-on thing that's dealt with somebody there in the office. It is a board responsibility. A study of the recommendations and the findings, together with your actual forecast in the thing, will enable you to plan your future and to assist in transforming our sporting system. The purpose of the barometer is to adopt a more strategic and forward-looking approach in shaping a federation's future profile. That's the purpose of the barometer. It's no longer just a measurement and then you wait to fill in the forms for next year. It's now you have to manage that process to which you have committed yourself. To enable transformation trends and changes to be more effectively monitored, can't manage it effectively on an annual basis alone. You've got to compare over a period of time. Federation-specific target achievements, timelines to be established. After this first report and the second one, transformation report, we'll be able to make a timeline for each federation, which they will have to defend now in terms of how am I busy changing my organization. If it's a flatliner, then it's like a flatliner in a hospital emergency room. You're in trouble. You're not going to just sit still like in the past and let water run over the stones in the river. As I anticipated, we all knew that the forecasted figures by the federations will be lower than the transformation charter one. We accepted that because each federation looked at their own circumstances and said, this is what my board say we can do. So we said, fine, but don't forget the charter and don't forget the national population demographic that you're striving for. It's your own targets. Now, we will audit you and then we will pronounce on that. Actual barometer performances are measured as part of each year's annual audit. So, annual audit, we take the actuals and we stick it into the agreement with the minister as far as the barometer is concerned. Actual results received at the end of March now were compared to a federation's own forecasted performance as well as the charter targets just for Mozzie. But we focused on the forecasted values of the year of the federation. Failure, and that has been mentioned, I'm not going to repeat that, failure to achieve your own self-set targets. No longer like in the history where somebody said to you, you will or you shall or do all of that. You selected that targets after due deliberation in your ranks. Any one of those four and more can be entered. Important thing is that the remaining 16 codes will enter into the barometer-based MOA with the ministry in due course. So that at the end, in terms of our prioritized codes and our pilot codes, we will have a view into the future as opposed to monitoring transformation on a historical basis. We will now say, look, this is what's going to happen. And you can see from that what I've given you, already there's a pattern. There's 5 or 6 codes where there's no problems. Then there's 5 or 6 that's sort of in the middle, and then there's 5 or 6 with serious problems. Now, the actual barometer performance is measured as the percentage of the number of forecasted performances achieved in 2 charter dimensions. Namely, access, the one, which is related to school and club structures and participation opportunity, and then also demographic profiles. As the DG has said, those two dimensions are inseparable. Without a sound access system, we will battle for another 100 years with demographic change in our sporting system. And in that access category, there's nothing more important than the school structures. Now, at the moment, it is, I don't want to be melodramatic, but having seen the figures, having tried to get hold of it, there is no correlation between any provincial department's figures for which schools play which sports with federation-generated schools that play in each district in their code. No correlation. And if there's no correlation, I mean, it's 100% difference between the two. So what it tells, from a scientific point of view, what it tells you, nobody knows what's happening in the school environment. There's no access in the rural areas. Townships are under great stress. Federations concentrate on Model C schools and on private schools. That's their domain. They're not worried about cooperating with government structures in terms of the structures that government at national and provincial level would want to put into place to bring sport to those schools where the federations are not present. We cannot be serious that we are serious about transformation if we allow this to continue. In other words, if you're in private school or if you're in a old Model C school, you are okay. You'll find your way into an underage representative team at the national level. You will find your way into a Protea team because that road is not blocked. Because those federations have their own tournaments. They don't cooperate with the tournaments that provincial federations and national federations at school level want to get going. That mindset has got to be changed. Now, much has been said about it, but I think we're getting to the stage where they will have to be looked at being more aggressive in terms of making sure that government and sports structures work together and support each other. Mention has been made about the agreement between Sport and Recreation and the Department of Basic Education. That agreement is a good agreement. Not perfect, but it's a good agreement. But it's not being implemented. It's not being implemented. So the longer we wait for implementation on that one, the more children are getting lost in our pipeline. And if you looked at those strategic statistics in terms of the numbers of people involved, because the number of people that can't get into the system are essentially black African. So the longer they are not in the system, we will miss out on talent, we will miss out on potential, and we will just disappear into the mist in the longer term future. We've got to be serious about what we need to do. Now the following table will illustrate to you. That table, it's an extract out of the barometer table. You can see there are barometer, male generic, black demographic player profile, black African and females, and then the subcategories in each one of them that we're looking at. And then first column, the B1, that is the Federation's own forecast. Remember, nobody gave them that forecast. That's the Federation's forecast. They put that down. Some of them deliberated a lot at boardroom level before they put that figure in. Then comes the audit, column A. We take the actual achievement and now we compare it with the Federation's own forecast. And then we get to a percentage of the forecast achieved. In other words, if you made a forecast of 20 and you actually achieved 10, then your achievement was only 50% out of that. So it's a very simple process, not a complicated mathematical genius approach. The performance in each category, as I said, is an expressive forecast. Don't worry about that. No, that's all right. Then, from that, an overall barometer percentage score is calculated by determining the number of targets achieved or exceeded, expressed as the percentage of the total number of targets. So, if you have set 30 targets and you've achieved your forecasted target in 10, then your percentage would be 10 divided by 30. So it's the number of forecasts, the number of actuals that you've achieved with respect to your forecasts. Simple system. Let's look at some of them. Here's the access one for the 5 pilot codes. Now you can see those figures there are the percentage of own target achieved. You can see most of them overachieved in that target. Why? Because it was guessing. They guessed. Because they couldn't get participation numbers of schools, couldn't get hold of it. So they guessed. And you can see even in athletics that 1,644, it's a ridiculous thing on the thing. So you can see over and above. Oh, sorry. I want to join you. So you can see over and above that people gave us figures to say we will be at the end of 2015 in 250 schools in these districts. Actuals came, and then actuals that came out did not make any sense. So over and above the fact that everybody did okay in the access category, except football. Football has got a strategic weakness. It's got no organized presence at school level. There's no Model C school, no private school, no nothing participating. So you can see that little table immediately strategically shows you a weakness and it shows you the other thing is that the results are not reliable on that thing. I think that cricket's was the only one that was reasonably reliable because they went into a lot of trouble to verify those results. So they did not achieve their forecasts, as you can see. It's below 100%, but it makes sense and it was reasonably reliable. If we now go to the males players demographic profile, you can see there's the whole list of national teams at senior and underage level is in the category column. Now there are so many. If it's grey coloured, it means there's no activity in that area. Now, netball said they did submit on Friday. I'll check when I get back to the office today. But on that basis, but there you can see that football has achieved their targets in their senior and underage teams. You can see rugby did not. They achieved for their spectrum of representative teams. They're sitting at 34, 44, 35, 44. So rugby clearly on that basis has got a demographic problem at a senior and at an underage level. Another weakness that comes out of that one is for cricket. Cricket did not decline to submit targets for the Protea team. Said, no, we're not giving you targets for that. However, under 19, they have achieved 87. They did give a forecast for under 19. They achieved 87 of that forecast. But look at the empty line with respect to other underage games. So strategically, this table, so if you study it, you can see cricket has got a pipeline problem. They can't fill or feed that national Protea team if they've only got one representative underage team. If you don't create opportunities for people to come up from school level up through provincial level to play at an international level, how are they ever going to be shaped up to be able to represent in the football has got a good pipeline. Senior team, under 23, under 20, as well as an under 70 team. So again, what does the barometer data lead us to? It leads us to strategically be able to draw conclusions out of the thing, out of that thing. Quickly, the Black African one, same sort of pattern. I'm not going to stand there and waste your time, but it's the same thing. Again, cricket's Achilles heel is the one team. Football is quite good. Athletics is not too bad, but they've got they haven't got underage teams. They've got juniors and youths. They're right at the bottom of the thing. Females, no data from cricket and no underage representative teams. So again, how will cricket feed their national women's team if there are no underage teams playing international representative games? Rugby have achieved 69% in their senior team and in their sevens team. Football, again, looking pretty strong and robust. That's why the minister said they performed reasonably well. Black Africans, more or less the same. Coaches, referees, you can see it's green. So everybody achieved the targets that they have set to themselves. They've achieved the targets that they've set to themselves for coaches and for referees and umpires. They did not achieve the charter target, but they achieved their own target, which is a step forward. Now they just need to build on it. There is the board and full-time staff. I've spoken about it. I showed you those things. Then the last two dimensions in the barometer is the accredited technical support, scientific support. Now, years ago, we had a strong scientific base. Throughout the scientific and technical base of South African sport, it's isolated. Here's a guy, there's a guy. There are no structures in the place. Now, you cannot compete internationally if you do not have a strong scientific support base. And you can see, it's not there. It's a serious one that needs to be addressed. Now, I'm going to reveal to you now the scores in terms of what percentage of the targets that I've set myself in those 11, 10 categories that I actually achieve. And you can see that football has achieved 53% of the targets that they have set themselves. Netball has achieved 33%. It might go up a little bit after my discussions with them, and they can supply me with the data for the underage teams. Athletics achieved 40%, rugby 34%, and cricket 25%. As I went through the scorecards, you can see I highlighted where the weaknesses are in each one of those codes. How's that done? 10 more minutes. Yeah? 10. Okay. Here's a projected for one of the codes. Generic black percentage change from 2000, plotted it from 2014, and then extrapolated it to 226. 220. You can see this code will only achieve its demographic generic black target of 80%, still miles away from where we want to be. So we can plot, and you can see, you're not going to do it by incrementally adding 5, 5, 5, 5. There's got to be constructive intervention for us to be able to do it. This is another way to just look quickly at those profiles. This is rugby's profile. The x-axis are all the dimensions, the subcategories. The red line is the 100%. The green bars are the ones that they've achieved their targets in. It's another view of cricket. green ones that they've achieved. You can see the fact that they did not supply as per the target of their own. We measured them on the basis of the target of the transformation charter. So their score can be improved by just providing the targets, getting more underage teams, and doing the necessary thing. Can you see the difference? There is the own target achievement, 25%, and the charter target is lower, is 20%, because it's a higher value. Well, I'm not going backwards. Athletics, plenty green, as you can see, in those categories. Netball, big time strong on the access side. Middle one, the underage teams, and they're not too bad at the end of the day. Okay, let me highlight some of the issues now. I've classified the issues that came out of the report in the following categories. High importance, high urgency. The alignment and coordination of national, provincial, and local government sport and education structures and sports federation, national and provincial sports structures. Guys, if we don't kill that one, we cannot ride off on our own little boats. It's too important to have a multi-boat approach at the school level. We've got to work together in a coordinated and aligned way. If we allow the separation, the big coach will continue to focus on private schools and onto Model C schools. And the others will just be left out. Government will try and do their National Sports Week to their best ability, but with no or very little cooperation from sports federations. Government's National Sports Schools Week have got to be supported by National Sport Federation structures. If we don't do that, then we make a joke of everything. And in that way, we may start working closer together. But that is a key issue that needs to be addressed. High importance, high urgency. That there is a distinct possibility that we've got different sport silos. Our sports system is fragmented, driven in many instances by commercial forces, which overrides the importance of transformation and all of those other issues. We've got to break through that barrier if we want to move forward. Another dilemma, schools fall within the jurisdiction of the Department of Basic Education and sport under the control of the Department of Sport and Recreation. So there has to be a memorandum of agreement to deal with this issue. If that memorandum of agreement is not absolutely operational, then we miss the boat again, because then there's no cooperation between people controlling sport and people controlling the school environment. Implementation, as I said, of that memorandum of agreement, nothing wrong with the agreement. It's the implementation. Then there's some high importance, high urgency, low commitment of provincial federation sports structures. I've mentioned it, the transformation. National federations have to crack that one. Otherwise, you're going to, every year when you submit your data, you're going to say, I'm not getting my data from the provinces. They're not helping me in transformation. They're not actively involved at the school level. We've got to get them to become, as I've said, increasing number of teachers as organizers that are becoming more and more unwilling to be involved in school sport for obvious reasons. So if we look at these things perspectively, like someone said, school sport is our foundation, Louis, it's our foundation. And you can see it's not organized, it's not structured. We've got to get it into place. Facilities shortcomings, but that's being dealt with the department at the moment. They're busy with their work. Low percentage of schools providing structured sport participation opportunities. Do you know how few underage leagues there are at not Model C schools and private schools, but all the other ordinary schools. It's just a social thing. There's no organized underage competition. Under 11, under 13, under 14, under 15. Few township schools. Now, don't talk about rural, it's far away. I'm talking about township schools. There's a specific question in the EPG data sheet. How many township schools participate? How many township schools are there? How many township schools participate? 80% of them cannot even tell you how many schools there are in a township. So how can you have a plan of action to take sport into the townships, which is virtually on your doorstep in some areas? Low commitment and support from coaches and leadership structures to transform in certain codes. We know, we've seen the damage that the coach that is not philosophically attuned to transformation, that the damage it can do that. That is a hard job for national federations to attend to get coaches to be equally committed to transformation, and that they understand the principles, and that they understand the reasons why, because they can blow your boat out of the water by not following the right selection coaching procedures. I said that. I have made it my job to try and find out how many sports people have found their way into representative national teams, either at underage or senior level, from schools that are not old Model C schools and that are not private schools. I could not find one. I couldn't find one child that progressed from his or her own captive environment through those filters and those barriers, preventing them from getting into the bigger and more important part of the game. It's not there. We have to address that. Inadequate and non-aligned funding processes to support transformation interventions. There's no money for transformation, yet we want people to do things. We need ring-fence money to be able to deal with the implementation of the EPG recommendations and their findings, to assist the provinces to be able to do what needs to be done. And from what I've said this morning, you can see where it is. Is at school level. That's where the resources have got to be applied, to create opportunities to participate, to be able to organize and to structure. Inadequate, unreliable data systems. You've got to invest funds and money into your data system. If you don't know what you've got, how can you plan where to go? Potential disconnect between school sport and government and sport federation structures. I've said enough about that. Low level of participation of females of sport, in sport. And then the impact of the declining growth rate on sustainability of the white population. If you go away into your boardroom, you have a look. I had an excellent 2 sessions with hockey and with Bowles as executive. And quickly, Bowles in particular have cottoned on. And they have realized that they are extinct if they don't solve that problem. And it's no good to talk about expensive facilities and all of those things. Make a plan if Bowles wants to survive as a sporting code. Max, I think that's enough. If you want to do a way forward, just 5 items, if I may. 2 minutes. Okay. Intensify the establishment to more effectively monitor and effect the implementation of the EPG recommendations. If we don't make ways, open doors to implement those recommendations, then the EPG is also wasting their breath. Establish an automated data collection and analysis process in-house at the Department of Sport, and extend the skill base in there on the basis of the people that we've got to manage the process. Because I'll be driven off a bus soon, one of these days. We must make sure that we continue this and not interrupt it. Consistent improvement in quality and reliability of the data. We know now what we're doing. Now we must make sure that the quality of our data and our interpretations are fine. We need to finalize and review the transformation charter. That's in progress, but it's critical. That was the first shot at it. We can improve a lot on that. Promote and establish a school. I know there's a school sports strategy, but we need to focus on a strategy that coordinates and aligns all the role players so that we can get optimum results. Advocate alignment of government funding frameworks to charter, annual EPG audits and recommendations. Must make funds available for that. Ensuring increasing support for the transformation process and advocating the use thereof as part of
Thank you very much, Dr. Boson, for the good news and not so good news. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now afford an opportunity strictly to members of the media to ask questions. We will, after lunch, as I indicated earlier on, that we will have a meeting with all the federations, and we can have where you will have an opportunity to intimately interact with the report and deal with your concerns or comments that we'll make in relation to the report. I now open the floor to questions from ladies and gentlemen of the media, and if you could just indicate the media house that you come from, and then ask your brief question. So I'm so delighted that there are no questions, so I guess the report is crystal clear. Where? Oh, okay, thank you, go ahead.
Well, will be one-on-ones allowed? Will be one-on-ones be allowed?
Yes, there will be one-on-ones after the Q&A. Okay. No, thank you very much then. I will then ask the Deputy Minister to then deliver the closing remarks. Just to make a few announcements that we will, immediately after the Deputy Minister's intervention, we will have lunch. And then during lunch, that's the time when we'll be entertaining the one-on-one interviews. And then we'll come back to this room at 1 o'clock for the meeting with the federations, and that will be a closed session.
Thank you, Max. Minister Mbalula. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to go through the protocol. I want to take the protocol, all protocol observed route this morning. Mine is to, at the end of, I thought, a very informative process and a very thorough report, to just extend a word of thanks to the Minister of Sport and Recreation, Mr. Fikile Mbalula. And Tata Mbalula, you know, when you were speaking and the anthem of the African Union was playing, I was reminded of a Kenako. Africa's time has indeed come. And shortly after that, you very eloquently spoke to the report, the second report, and the findings. And like we said, in Afrikaans, it's 'n bietjie terpentyn gegee, where it was needed. Now, DJ, I don't know whether you understand what terpentyn is. It's a little bit of petrol, but it burns like hell. And we hope that, Minister, when we get the next EPG report, that the good news will be that you will not have to speak or reprimand any one of the federations that signed with us on this journey, which is absolutely correct. To the MEC President, the MECs in the various provinces, thank you so much for you and your departments for all the support, and the Portfolio Committee, Chairperson and the Select Committee for always supporting us. To SASCOC, Mr. Gideon Sam, your CEO, and all your members present this morning, thank you so much for a partnership which is ensuring that we achieve what we set out to do right in the beginning and at the end, well, at the end and the beginning, end of the Sport Indaba, the beginning of implementing the Transformation Charter. To the EPG, under the chairpersonship of Dr. Fikile, who is now retiring or going on to greener pastures, thank you for the good work that the entire EPG has done. Mr. Louis von Ziener for being here this morning, and Max Moss, my friend. And then for the Secretariat, Dr. Vali Basson, Doc, you and Max are doing a good job there, so keep up the good work. Thank you so much. To our stakeholders, all the federations with SASCOC and the Sports Trust, thank you for your support in assisting us to get the starting line the same for all the children in this country. DG, to you and the personnel of our department, thank you so much for doing your job, assisting us in the ministry to achieve what we set out to do, and that's to transform the sporting landscape to create opportunities for those children of us that never had it before. To members of the media, thank you so much for being here, and I mean it sincerely. If it's not for the media that carries out our message, that bring awareness and creates awareness, you know, we can talk in corners, but if the people don't know what we set out to do, they will never be behind us, and we will never be able to get our message across. So thank you so much for that. It's just ably demonstrating that working together, we do so much more. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have one-on-ones with the media. Now, after that, we're going to have lunch, and then we're going to have a closed session. So some of you will be departing early, some of you after the next meeting. I judge that all of you are friends of us in this process of transforming the sporting landscape in our country. So please drive home carefully, drive home safely. But just in case you're not a friend of us, I'm not going to direct you how to drive. Enjoy your day.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. The head table, the sports bodies and federations and members of the EPG, will you please come back here at 1 o'clock? We'll now afford the media one-on-ones, and the rest of us can go for lunch, and we'll be back here at 1 o'clock.